Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and I wanted to have a conversation with you about you. There's a lot that comes up this time of year, as we know, as we're ending a year, ending a cycle, and whether you are someone who likes resolutions or not, it's just almost this automatic or collective kind of resonance with an acknowledgement that we are ending a year, ending a cycle. And so, again, there is a lot that comes up around this in terms of reflection around where we are and where we're going. And so, I have had several conversations about this in the last few weeks. I have been very reflective about this within my own life. But then I thought about you, I thought about the podcast, and I just wanted to have a conversation about this because, you know, when we get overwhelmed with these thoughts, this time can become very kind of confusing and frustrating. And we may not even know what the source of it is. But we have this unconscious way of, dealing with what we want to experience or express. And if we don't know how, it can cause some undercurrents of fear or worry. It can cause some undercurrents of judging or criticizing ourselves for not being where we wanted to be or where we thought we should be. And it can also, bring up a bit of frustration of not knowing how to proceed forward. So I wanted to talk to you today about where you are and where you're going. And another key piece of this is the whole idea of purpose and fulfillment. That's another thing that has been coming up a lot because I noticed that within our realm, there is a lot of conversation around purpose and people having this desire to be in alignment with what feels right and true and, wanting to live an expression of whatever their purpose may be. And so, in having conversations around this as well, I really started to think, well, what is the difference between our purpose versus what gives us a sense of fulfillment? And when we say we want to be in alignment with our purpose, is it just more so that we want to feel a sense of fulfillment? So we're going to talk about all of this, where we are, where we're going, but hopefully this is some good reflection for you so that you can allow yourself to go more deeply into a state of clarity and have more awareness of what your own stories are, what your own energy is right now about your life, and whatever it is you may be personally working through to get to the other side of. So get comfortable. Let's talk about it. And I will see you in just a moment. Okay, beautiful alchemist. So, where do we begin with this? Like I said, there's a lot to consider here: purpose, fulfillment, where we are and where we're going. Now, this made me think a lot about how so many of us get drawn into this path to seeking, right? And that's really where I wanted to start, having a bit of reflection for you. What caused you to want to understand yourself or life in a different way? How did you come into relationship with your spiritual practice? What was the catalyst? For some of you, I'm sure, because I've heard the stories, some of you grew up in an environment where perhaps this is just all you've known. But at some point, something pushed you deeper into the awareness. And for those of us where it really wasn't on our bingo card, there was something in life that caused us to seek a different type of understanding, to understand ourselves in life in a very different way. So we hear a lot about this inherent knowing that is embedded within the consciousness of all of us. that part of ourselves, the higher self, the true self. It goes by many different names, but this part of us that will whisper to us, try to guide us along the way. But until we develop a relationship and really can accept and acknowledge that that level of expression is a part of us, we often dismiss it. And we often live and make decisions based on, cultural expectations or the expectations of our family. We often make decisions in our lives based on just the external world's view of value and what is right and what is wrong and what we should want to aspire to and what we're supposed to achieve, all of these things. And yet, when a lot of us come into this practice of self connection, deeper self reflection, we start doing what many of us would call energy work or allowing ourselves to develop a relationship and ways of acknowledging what our paths have been. We start to understand then why we've made the decisions that we've made up until a point. We start to understand where or why there was a disconnect between what we really desired versus what it is we felt we had to fulfill. So I want to stop there for a moment and have you consider, what is it that you have been seeking clarity around? What is it that you have felt drawn to understand or know or to heal? What has come into your awareness through your practice, or even if you're not practicing yet, if you're someone who is just seeking and just came upon this podcast, what is it that you are looking for? What answers are you seeking? It's a very interesting thing. I was talking again with someone recently about what motivates us. What is the driving factor that makes us go in any direction over another? What made you accomplish the goals that you already have? What is driving you to go after whatever it is that you're going after right now? That kind of tied in with this whole idea of, ending a cycle, ending a year, and then at the new year, even if you're not into resolutions, a lot of times we have just this hope or this longing or this vision for what the new year will be, what we want to experience, where we may want to see change, how we may want to do things differently. But there's a vision, there's a goal, there is something that we are aspiring to, there is something that we want to experience. And when we have that, then there's this drive, this determination. Even if we don't know how to make it happen, we still know that there is something we're working towards. And so it opens us up to new possibility and new potential, because we often have to do things differently in order to tap in to a new type of experience. Whereas on the other hand, if we're just passive in our life and we're just, thinking, oh, what will be, and we don't really have anything that we want to connect to in particular, we don't have a goal or a vision, there it feels like to say there's not as much life force beneath that. It's kind of like just riding a current, waiting for life to happen to us. And while for some people that may feel like the way to go, does it ever give you a sense of fulfillment? So on either side of the street, what is it that gives you a sense of fulfillment? And this could be beyond, before we get to like the bigger picture, larger scale, not like you want to make sure that you feed 1 million people in your lifetime or something like this. Just a little closer to home. What gives you a sense of fulfillment? Is it when you are supporting your family or your friends? Do you feel a sense of fulfillment when you do well on a project or some sort of accomplishment at work? Do you feel a sense of fulfillment when your relationships are healthy? What role are you in? How are you showing up in different areas of life that make you feel whole, complete? And again, as if you're in the right current of what is satisfying to you on a soul level. And this is not about, again, recognition from others, not what other people may say. You do this to get a gold star. No. What makes you personally feel a sense of fulfillment? Just in a generalized way, it's coming up. A lot of people feel so purposeful in working with animals or supporting animals. A lot of people feel a sense of fulfillment in supporting, helping, protecting children. Some people feel such a sense of fulfillment by, you know, just being a good friend or, again, a good partner. All of these expressions, while they may have some level of action attached, underneath it all is the resonance of our character. We feel a sense of fulfillment when we can be in the expression of love. We feel a sense of fulfillment or being purposeful when we can express and show up in our kindness. So if we step a little back from how we do this or what would make us feel purpose or, trying to figure out what is my soul's purpose, I think we can first look at where can I acknowledge that I'm acting in my kindness rather than my fear, my doubt, or my worry. So again, if you look at the different areas of your life and consider how you are functioning based on your feeling, it's easy to distinguish, this area of life, I may be functioning from fear or hurt or worry. This area of life, I get to express myself in just my love and my kindness. And you'll notice the difference of how you feel when you think about these different interactions and expressions and experiences that you get to have. But what if the areas where you recognize I'm functioning out of fear of loss, I'm functioning out of fear of lack, I'm functioning from a fear of just things not going the way that I want, I'm trying to control a certain area of my life. What is that doing to you in frequency? What is that doing to your mind? How is that causing you to function? And is that really the best way to support your experience of whatever that area of life may be? This is a beautiful time, okay, again, if you listen to the energy of the month update, there's been a lot of talk about not just ending the cycle of another year as we always do, but in the system of numerology, this is a universal year 9, which in of itself points to an end of a cycle. Then we have in the lunar new year, we will be moving out of the year of the snake, which is shedding old skin and releasing the old. And we're moving into the year in February of the fire horse, where it's more active, more vital energy, more of a moving forward. So there are several different layers that are pointing to us collectively being in this energy of what is it that we are letting go of or working through to heal, to resolve, to reconcile, so that we can move forward differently or in a higher way or with new understanding. And again, we often determine what that is based on the external. Maybe in your career, you're focused on a promotion. Maybe in your relationship, you're focused on healing or calling in a new type of energy and relationship. Perhaps you want to reconnect in your friendships. Perhaps you want to invest your money differently, whatever it may be. But I would say, again, consider the energy, the consciousness of how you are functioning in all of these areas of life, and really come into awareness of the undercurrent of where am I acting in love, my kindness, my trust, my knowing, and where is it that I am functioning from fear, confusion, worry. And wherever you recognize that is what is guiding your way, consider why. What is the story around this? What am I really afraid of? And is it true? Is this a story that I'm making up? Is it based on my past experience? Is it necessary to attach to this point of view? What would happen if I gave myself the space, the allowance to open up to new possibility and potential around this? What if instead of projecting the worst or the fear, I allow myself to readjust and come into this space of let me be led in the highest and best way. Help me heal this fear, this doubt, this worry. Let me recognize what is the truth of what it is that I've been telling myself all along. In this work, we often expect, if I am using all the tools, I am meditating, I am practicing Reiki, I am being kind, right? We expect then these miracles to happen in life, in all areas of life, from the lens of I should get what I want. Things should look like what I want them to look like because I'm doing all of the right things. But again, surface level, perhaps you do meditate and move into a state of open awareness and spaciousness of mind. Perhaps you do practice Reiki and you have these moments of clarity and feeling one with yourself and all there is. But do you sustain that? That clarity, that frequency of love, that frequency that we immerse ourselves in, do you work on sustaining that and allowing that to be the same frequency you function from when you come out of your practice and then re-enter and re-engage with your life? This isn't about, just clarifying my mind for the 20 minutes to an hour of my meditation and then going back to my life and functioning in fear again. The frequency that you recognize, that you cultivate through your practices, whatever your practices may be, the key is how do you maintain and sustain these energies? What do they help you to recognize that is truly being held in your consciousness in terms of your fears, your doubts, your worries? And how do you address those in the frequency of love, in the frequency of compassion, in the frequency of higher understanding? Because again, like I said a moment ago, where we often feel most fulfilled is when we can express and act and be in the consciousness of kindness and of love. What causes distortion, disturbance, discomfort in our life is when we are choosing to function outside of those frequencies, when we slip out of the love, the compassion, the kindness, and we slip into functioning in our fear, our doubt, our worry. And then this makes life feel like this weird roller coaster, these ups and downs, it feels unstable. But it doesn't have to be so. We just have to recognize what is at the foundation, which again is our consciousness, how we are seeing and understanding ourselves, life, and everyone in it. So if I and you, if we decide, I'm going to live in accordance with, let's say, the Reiki principles, the Reiki Gokai. If I am going to live in expression with what the teachings of the Reiki symbols are, if I say I'm going to be a loving, compassionate being, but then when I'm not in session or I'm not in a meditation, I come out and I'm angry and judging and criticizing the world around me, what energy am I really functioning from primarily? You don't want your practice to be a small portion of your day. We go into the practices within the system of Reiki. We go into the practice of meditation. We do all of these things. Think of it as setting your energy, constructing your baseline of function within your frequency. And that is consciously what you work on sustaining as you function throughout your day. So then your primary vibration or frequency that you function from then becomes that is derived from your practice and your healing and your transformation. Now, where you are, we often, again, focus on the different areas of our life. And, I mean, I do personally, but I get a big dose of this because I work with people every day, whether in session or in classes, right? There are some classic points of life that we all tend to amplify and focus on. So again, it could be better relationship interactions, freedom from our fear, doubt, and our worry, our stress. We really want to increase our finances or move beyond our personal blocks. We hear all of this in this realm. But the key is underneath it, we're like, how do we achieve what it is that we are claiming that we want to experience in a more consistent way? Now, some of us get caught up in comparison because we'll see other people living in a way that seems that they are locked in coherence with, the highest expression of their life. But let's be honest, a lot has been confused and manipulated, quite frankly, through social media and these things. You often just catch a glimpse of something that is curated that someone wants to show you or they want to portray. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% true and representative of their entire life expression. Some people, may seem to have a great connection to relationship energy, and yet they may have more of a struggle when it comes to their career. Or some people are really great in the sector of career, but may struggle when it comes to the essence of relationship. We all, every single one of us, has some level of, healing work. I want to say restoration, restoring, coming back to a baseline that is true to really supporting every sector of life. Now, the thing is, though, is it takes work. It also takes true acknowledgement of where you are now. It requires you to be vulnerable and honest with yourself instead of just saying or painting the picture of like, oh, everything's perfect. When you really sit within yourself, how do I really feel? What is really going on beneath the surface for me? What is motivating my behavior in these different areas of my life? Is there any essence of fear, doubt, or worry? Or is it truly this openness, this spacious, this joyfulness? We all have an undercurrent. We all have stories and attachments that may not be in alignment with what we say we actually want to experience, but we can only make correction by being honest and understanding what still would benefit from healing, what aspects of ourselves we would benefit from acknowledging in truth so that we can see and recognize and infuse and re-identify ourselves from a lens of compassion and understanding rather than amplifying these stories of not being good enough, not being smart enough, not being this or that enough. We have to get to the foundation. So, getting to know our personal blocks to truly heal. A lot of people in this realm just desperately want to share their gifts with others. But even when we say that, I want to share my gifts, I want to, start a business, I want to be a practitioner. What are you really saying? Again, underneath it all, yeah, you may want to share Reiki sessions. You may want to do whatever other energy practice or whatever it is that you have learned that you want to share. But the undercurrent is that of that is you want to share the intelligence, the frequency of love and compassion with others. The truth is, we inherently want others to feel seen, heard, understood, and loved in kindness because it's the same expression that we ourselves want to experience. And for a lot of us, when we do Reiki sessions or we go to classes, we're in these bubbles of just everyone present is in that same frequency of desire to vibrate at the frequency at the level of love, to be held in kindness and compassion, all of these things. And then we go out back into the regular life. And then all of a sudden we start to match the energies of the collective. We start to feel, see, and sense the fears, the doubts, the worries of the collective screaming. And instead of maintaining the energy, the frequency that we've been cultivating and working on, instead we start to slip and match those other frequencies again. And then we get into this frustration, this doubt, this worry. How can I do the things that I want to do? How is it possible? Da da da. And we have a bunch of story. What are your stories? We also have these ideas and stories that our ability to share the love that we are trying to unearth and cultivate and live in expression of, that it has to be done in very particular ways. No, again, this is about living this expression throughout every area of our life. So let's say, for an example, your day job is you're an accountant. It doesn't mean that you don't get to share this gift of Reiki or whatever it is that you practice because you're at the 9 to 5 every day. The point of this work is to cultivate and become the expression of this intelligence so that you are sharing love, compassion, kindness, even with the people at your job, even with the people in your home, even with everyone you encounter. The key is we are supposed to always be in the expression of our practice through our kindness, through our love, through our compassion, unconditionally. This is what all of the elements within the system of Reiki point to. This is what all of the elements and all kinds of philosophies point to. But we tend to interrupt it with what we think things are supposed to be rather than recognizing the simplicity of start at home. The healing, the recognition, the sustaining of what you are wanting to be in expression. And then how do you give yourself the task of practicing that throughout the day with everything you encounter? That's just at the foundation. I remember at the beginning of this work, there was some class I took where they would always say their tagline was something like change your mind, change your life. And as I started practicing Reiki, I thought like, yeah, change your energy, change your life. But it's really true. It's, yes, we have to be participants in our lives and take action that support what we want to experience. But the key is what is the foundation of those actions. It's your energy, it's your consciousness. We often have a fight, a tug of war. We say we want one thing, but the stories running through our minds are projecting something else. The stories projecting other are giving you evidence of what you are ready to heal, what still needs to be acknowledged by you for you, what still needs to be held in the essence of compassion or forgiveness, what needs to be understood in a higher way by you. So, this is where we hear like, don't bypass in your healing, don't run away from the shadow. These things are all meant to be held or brought into the consciousness of love, compassion, forgiveness, etc. So, where are we now? Where are you now? Where are we frustrated with, making efforts that we're not seeing results from? One time recently, I was in a meditation. I was asking about this, and what came through was we often get frustrated because we keep seeking the result. And the result that we're seeking is what we think things should be or should look like. So we become frustrated and we're like, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't this working for me? Ba, 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 ba. And that really distracts us from what is true. And instead of diverting into this lower frequency of frustration and amplifying our need to try to control and all these things and all the stories we can make up in conclusion of not having things pan out the way that we think it ought to be, what if instead you recognize the grace of divine intelligence just in all that you encounter throughout the day? So instead of just looking for this evidence of something unfolding exactly as you think it should, instead you wake up and you acknowledge the divine blessing and gift of you woke up in the first place. You acknowledge the gift of having the roof over your head, the food that you eat, the people that you encounter throughout the day. Everything you start to acknowledge as part of the gift, part of the miracle, part of how your soul is having an opportunity to learn, to grow, to evolve. Even the things that bump against you, that are challenging, that are uncomfortable, how is it serving you in your healing in some way? So then it's just a redirection of focus and attention. And when we train ourselves and remember to recognize that this entire life expression is an opportunity for the soul to evolve, to accept the love that you are, to accept the brilliance of your presence and your design, then you start to recognize it in everyone else around you. You start to recognize that gift within every experience, every opportunity you then become presented with. So instead of looking for some very specific outcome, you start to recognize all of the gifts that are interwoven throughout each day. These are the little things that then support the sustaining of this frequency that we talk about all the time. You hear people saying, especially because, again, social media, and this has become very healing and spirituality in a lot of ways has become part of like pop culture and I don't know, like trendy even in some ways. But the truth is, it's not about pretending to be happy or high vibe or all the things, whatever. It's not. It's not about if you are more intuitive than the person down the street. It's not. It's what essence are you functioning from? What is your purification of mind? What is that process like? Just the simple things where you catch yourself judging another person. Can you catch that in an instant and remind yourself that we're all trying our best? We're all trying to work out something. Our souls all came to figure something out. We all have fear, doubt, and worry. And sometimes what we're seeing is someone else functioning from their fear, doubt, and worry. You, me, we have all functioned from fear, doubt, and worry at one time or another. If we were all consistently functioning from the frequencies of love, compassion, and kindness, this conversation wouldn't even be necessary and the world surely wouldn't look like what it does. But we know that this human experience is complex. We know that even just ourselves, look at how much you have learned through, what you've grown through, the ups and downs of your own life. Now, everybody has a story, and you don't know everybody's story. So when we reel it back in and first recognize, how do I have compassion for myself? How do I train myself to just sustain more frequently that intelligence of love, compassion, and kindness? Then it helps me to sustain it, to see that in all beings. So where are we going? We're moving into a universal year one. The one represents alignment. It also represents new beginning. But the key is, what are you aligning to? And what are you beginning? Are you going to just drag the old into the new that no longer serves you? Or are you going to make the conscious choice for yourself of, what does it really mean to function in higher frequency? What does it really mean to be in relationship with my higher mind, my higher consciousness, so that you can support the right alignment for you? Not aligning to what other people may project on you, not aligning to what others may want for you. What do you want for you in terms of your function, in terms of your experience, in terms of your being? Your alignment is your choice. Your alignment is going to require you to be in relationship with your mind, your thought forms, your actions, your behaviors, your emotions. And all of this is a process. This doesn't happen overnight. This is why anyone in this realm, they'll tell you, I've been practicing for X amount of years. It's a lifetime of experience and practice. That's what our souls came to do. And it looks different for all of us. And that's one thing we really have to recognize. Someone else's expression is not your primary focus. It's not your business, really. If you want, it's coming to mind, that phrase, like, if you want to see change in the world, be the change you want to see. But it's true. How can you say you want to experience a world where everyone is loving and kind and, oh, we're so collectively one and so nice to each other? But at an individual level, are you willing to do that? It's easy to look at other people and say, like, look at what they're doing and they're being this and they're being that. Okay, great. But what are you doing day to day, moment to moment? How are you choosing to show up in expression? This work, the reason they say it's not for the weak, the reason they say it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is because it does require us to be very honest about us, ourselves, and the healing that we require. It's gotten confused, I think, in the popularity and, again, like the trendiness of all this, that so much of our focus tends to be, how do we heal everything and everyone outside of us? Now, listen, I say all the time, and I mean it wholeheartedly, I feel what a gift it is that we can share these practices with others, that, Reiki is becoming so well received and integrated with more traditional healthcare, that you can find Reiki now in hospitals. And, I know a lot of people who work with people in all kinds of capacities that are wanting to learn Reiki to integrate, to combine, to allow it to be complementary to whatever else they may offer. It is incredible that this practice is so simple in a lot of ways that it can easily be shared to support helping the balancing, the healing, the restoration for others. But don't lose sight of the foundation, which is you. You know, a lot of times people get caught up even in that. Like, I want to be a good healer. I want to be the best practitioner. I want to, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like we just want to be of service. We just want to help. Your frequency matters. That's the key. It's not that you need to learn some new trick or new technique or go upside down. The more you work on you, the more you cultivate higher frequency in you, the more that expression is what is felt from you. Just your presence alone. That's the key. You have to be willing to spend the time to also, or only, whatever your path is, but somewhere in there has to be the primary focus of working on you. And this is not just, again, meditating and then walking away and matching the lower frequency of everything out there in the world. This is not just laying your hands on yourself in a Reiki session and then coming out and then matching the No, it takes effort. It takes cultivating an actual relationship with yourself where you acknowledge you, your emotions, your mind, your behaviors, your tendencies, your inclinations, and loving yourself through it all anyway. It's a practice. So where we're going, a lot of people talk about, even in a collective way, we are moving into higher frequency collectively, which is why we're seeing so much being disrupted, why we're seeing so much be exposed, why we're seeing so much confusion and, upset. That's what happens when things change. The underbelly is exposed. This is the same reason why, on a personal level, so many of us go through what is often called the dark night of the soul. What needs to be healed, what needs to be transformed, has to be exposed. But what happens in the exposure is the key. So as you start to recognize and realize your stories, how you're functioning, why you're choosing what you're choosing, XYZ, what do you do with the information? Now, if you judge yourself, beat yourself up, that's not going to heal. Remember, at the basis of all of this is your love, your compassion, your forgiveness. So as these things are revealed to you about you, remember, at the forefront is that frequency of your love, your compassion, your tenderness, your kindness. How do we come truly into higher frequency and sustain it? How do you truly come into right alignment and that intelligence that makes you feel fulfilled in all that you do and you encounter? What helps you to actually cultivate clarity of mind outside of the noise, the confusion? What helps you to learn to trust yourself, to get to know your higher mind, your higher guidance, your higher way? How do you allow yourself to be seen, heard, and understood differently? Part of it is the self-work that we do, but I have to tell you, another part of it, what I've realized, is community. Again, when we go to Reiki classes, we go to Reiki sessions, we're just in this bubble of reflection where everyone is willing to see the light in each other. Immersing ourselves in this type of community and communal support helps to amplify the process and the progress for us. One, because we expose ourselves more to environments where, yes, there is a willingness to see with the eye of love, compassion, and kindness. And because we are seen in that light, we are also more easily able to see others in that light. And so then that amplifies and we start getting used to that. That starts to become more of a familiar way of functioning. What we expose ourselves to, what we practice again and again, becomes our norm. What helps us to follow through with our vision and overcome our old stories, our old obstacles, and really accept what is new. I mentioned a while ago, maybe a couple episodes ago. I don't know. We have so many conversations. I don't remember where things come up, but one of the most beautiful reflections that was told to me recently. There was a new person in the alchemy circle this year who calculated how much time was spent in practice, in community, and us coming together and us learning together and really acknowledging how the immersion in that help them to be more aware in their day to day life, more aware of how they were personally functioning and interacting within their work environment, within their relationships, within their family. And, it made me think again, like just reflecting on the alchemy circle has been going on since 2020. And, many people have been in for many years. There are new people that pop in. Some people will do a few years, go out, and then come back in. But in all of it, it just made me reflect and realize, even for myself, because I'm showing up for this twice a week and on top of the other classes that we do. And it really did highlight for me as well, like, wow, it's what we give ourselves exposure to. A lot of us say, we don't have time to practice, or we just don't have the discipline, the diligence to practice enough, or we don't know how. Sometimes people get bored with their practice because they just are like, I don't want to just go sit for 10 minutes and lay my hands on myself. I don't know. There's so many different reasons of why people divert away from consistent practice. There's a lot of story around it. But because we are ending this 9-year cycle, because we're ending this year, because we're about to go into a cycle that highlights our alignment, because we're about to go into this new intelligence of forward movement, I couldn't help but think of, well, what are you moving towards? Are you acknowledging for yourself again what you're working through right now to get to the other side of? And what is your vision for yourself? If it's not impossible, but you also don't have to control the outcome, what is your motivation? What is driving you? And is there something else that's been playing in the background that really, truly is at the core of your vision for yourself, what you want to experience and feel throughout your life? Are you giving time and attention to this? When we talk about our purpose again, really think about, well, what makes me feel a sense of fulfillment? And again, you'll notice it really comes down to all of the spaces and places and expressions where you get to function in love, in joy, in laughter, in kindness, where you're able to extend that kindness, that love, that support to others. It's frequency. We often talk about in this realm, the bigger purpose is self-realization, is to recognize and understand who and what we are beyond the stories of this realm, to recognize that the divine is really, truly expressed in all living things. And we forget that. But we also came to remember that. So what do we do to help us come into right alignment, right frequency? It's something to consider. It's something to consider where you are and where you're going. You know, even in this work for myself, I had no idea where I was going. The catalyst for me, I mean, many of you, if you've listened to the podcast for years, you know my story. So I won't go into that in detail. But what I will say is, I just, in a general sense, I just wanted to feel peace. I wanted clarity of mind. I wanted to feel peace. And I wanted to know what was the right way forward in my life. What would make me feel a sense of purpose? What would make me feel a sense of fulfillment? What would make me feel like I was living on purpose? What could I do to make my life feel like an expression of love and kindness? I didn't necessarily use that language, but I knew I wanted to feel a sense of freedom. And I knew that that meant outside of my fear, my doubt, my worry. I knew that meant outside of my stress, but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know if it was possible. So fortunately, I did find this work. I was, it was suggested to me to have a Reiki session to learn how to meditate. And I followed through. I signed up for Reiki class. I signed up for meditation and I practiced every day. And I was fascinated by what I was experiencing. I was fascinated by these new curiosities. I was amazed by what I was starting to realize about myself, my old stories, what was holding me back, why I was keeping myself small and hidden, and why I just behaved and functioned in all the ways that I had been. I started to recognize and understand my programming, and it was mind blowing. At the same time, while I was having this incredible experience, I was still frustrated because I was looking for a particular outcome. And I remember there was a day I was so angry and yelling, literally crying to the universe, praying, "Why aren't you helping me? I'm doing all of the things." What I didn't realize at that time was that I was being supported in my healing process. What I didn't recognize is that my allowing myself to heal was also simultaneously guiding my way forward. And without it being my vision or my goal, what was happening was I was being referred to by, my friends and other clients were referring people to me. I started teaching where before I was just holding sessions. And then keep moving forward. I'm healing. I'm healing. I don't think anything is unfolding because my vision, and I don't even know if I had a very particular vision, but whatever it was, I didn't think it was what I was experiencing. And yet, what was happening was new opportunities kept opening up. What happened was I felt guided to start Reiki Radio podcast. I didn't know why or what it was going to do. I knew I wanted to share. I know I wanted to help anyone who might fall upon the podcast in some miraculous way. But I had no idea as I was going through my healing and as I was, you know, wanting my life to look like a fairy tale, I guess, I wasn't recognizing the beauty of what was unfolding as I was living it day to day. When I finally came to this awareness, which took several years, to be honest, my engagement with life began to change. I started to appreciate how life was then allowed to unfold because my frequency was changing, because my way of understanding myself, my path, my life was also changing. And I was allowing myself to be open to what was coming into alignment for me based on the frequency and the efforts of applying these practices. Really looking at how was I showing up in family. During COVID, I was back and forth between California and DC, Maryland. I never traveled so much in my life. And for 3 years, primarily, I was with my family. You talk about practice. I got an opportunity to really practice my practice in a way that I typically hadn't. When I was in California away from my family, yeah, I was practicing, but okay, I felt like I had got a lot of that down. And then being thrown in this other environment with being with my family gave me a whole new level of practice that cracked open. But that's what I did. I saw what it was, and it changed me in phenomenal ways. I say that to say your life is happening for you right now, but do you recognize it? Or are you attached to what you think it is supposed to look like, which really will obstruct your view and your understanding of what's actually happening? And when you take the time to choose to be very engaged with what does it look like to be in my practice from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, then what does life become? An experience. What do you recognize as fulfilling to you? What opportunities do open? What does it do to the nature of your relationships? What do you start to recognize is no longer for you? Because that also starts to happen. You may recognize, like, wow, I've been trying to attach to, cling to different relationships and people and experiences in my life that actually aren't even in resonance with where I am or where I'm going. There's so much, but we're also communal, and we do well with support, and we do well with being able to have conversations about these things as we're going through it. We do well with having guidance in how to practice effectively. Effectively. It's not just practicing. There are right ways, more effective ways to implement all of this. But I just wanted you to have some time to consider where you are and where you're going. What really matters to you? What is being revealed to you? What is the universe showing you that would support your way forward? Now, for those of you who are going at it alone or in a different way, hopefully you will take some time to be truly reflective about all of this and consider, is there any adjustment that would support you in being in your practice more consistently? What this all means to you? What does it mean to be in alignment with your own higher frequency and so on? For those of you who do want to join community and want to be consistent and dedicated to your work to really understand what all of this work is pointing to, join us in the Alchemy Circle. And I had to share this with you today because the registration closes in 5 days. And the reason that it does is because on the solstice, which is on the 21st, which is on a Sunday, we are meeting together online to do the work. We are going to do a very intentional practice. Of course, I will guide it to help you release and then to come into setting the foundation for the alignment that I've been talking about this whole time. So I would love for you to join us. I would love for you to say yes to this awakening within yourself. I am very excited about this new cycle that is beginning, but being very intentional about how it's handled. And in fact, through the Alchemy Circle this year, we are going to be very structured and diligent about this with focus on your frequency, how to go through the processes of healing that effectively help you to raise your frequency and come into alignment with your right energy, clarifying your mind, your emotion, all the things. And yes, we will implement some practices within the system of Reiki, but we'll also do other things within the umbrella of energetic alchemy. The point, though, is you. How you are beginning this new cycle to set a very clear foundation for understanding how you are craving to function moving forward in the expression, the unfolding, the creation of your life and your life path. So if you want to join us, just use the link below to register, activate your membership, and I will see you on the 21st for our opening ceremony. However, after that, a class officially will start in January, on January 6th. And again, we meet twice a week for the entire year, including some other classes that you will have access to just by being a member. But for all of us, all of you, I wish you, an incredible year ahead, of course. Hopefully you are reflective and see how you have grown, evolved, what this last 9-year cycle has shown you, has taught you, where it has given you strength, where it has given you love, what you continue to learn from where you are now. and how you have a hand on where you're going. I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. There are a few more episodes on Reiki Radio for December before we go into the new season and the new year. I wish you all the best. And again, I look forward to seeing some of you in the Alchemy Circle. Remember to always journey in love.